Lead off. You want to lead off?
And now, welcome Tyleem Robinson.
Woo! Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I pity the fool. Yeah, he's talking a lot of junk, man. But when we get in the ring, it's on and popping, man. It's on and popping. I'm gonna hit him with the left, and then I'm gonna hit him with the right, and then I'm
Eat his children.
probably gonna end the fight there, man. It's just gonna be a left and a right. It's gonna be all over. You know what I mean? Tyrone, Thornhill, man.
Yo.
What's going on, man? We are here another week at the MulTYversed. It is so good to see you, my friend. How was your weekend, man?
It's been all right. It's been stressful. I'm selling a house, and that is a stressful time. But it's on to better things. So, man, I'm just ready for it to be done.
Yeah, man. I could understand that, man. I mean, selling a house, especially with what's going on in the world and everything like that with the pandemic and everything, which has to make it a lot harder because you got to bring people into your house. You don't know if they're vaccinated. You don't know if they bring COVID with them. So I'm sure every time you have a viewing, you have to go through your house with with the 409 and all of the disinfectants and wipe down everything 2 times, 3 times, 4, maybe even 4 times over.
Yeah, I'd be waiting in the bushes and I'd pop out and spray them with Lysol. They would not even see me coming. I wasn't playing.
Yeah, man. But it is good. It is good to see you, as always, in good health and despite what's going on with the house, everything, we know that you are going to sell at some point.
Yes.
So that is definitely a plus. I know for our viewers out there, it looks weird today because Holly's not with us. She is actually enjoying her vacation, but she did come in to say hello. Hey, Holly.
She's coming in here to brag.
Yeah, coming here to brag. So that's cool, man. But for this week's show, we are going to be talking about Why Did I Get Married? Part 2. We did tell you guys we were going to come back and tap into that. Wish Holly was here, and Holly, you're in the comment section, so feel free to join the conversation at any point in time. And that goes for anybody out there. But we are going to tap into that. We are also going to be talking about what's been going on at the border as of late, and into a subject, and also tap into a subject that not a lot of people talk about, which is past lives. But I don't want to do the whole show quite yet. Let's go ahead and get into the intro, and then we'll be right back with y'all.
It's yours. Whose world is this? It's mine. Whose world is this?
And we are back. So, as I was saying before we kick the intro, we had a show a few weeks back called Why Did I Get Married? If you did not get a chance to see that episode, it is up on the MulTYversed fan page and also on the YouTube page for your viewing pleasure. But we kind of tapped into marriages versus, what was it? Marriage versus weddings, or marriage versus
civil unions, domestic partnerships.
So we tapped into all of that. But we ran out of time. So here we are again. And I think we ended on the last note with discussing the origins of marriage and where it actually stems from. You actually made a very, and I made sure that I remember this. You made a very keen statement on what marriages were initially, and how it was more of a business transactional kind of ordeal, where if you needed land, or you had land, or whatever it was that you had at that point in time, it was a way to kind of build more, or attain more. So could you kind of touch on that point a little bit for the people who didn't get to see that show?
Yeah. So that was even more kind of politically, like you would see people using weddings and stuff to consolidate power between, two nations, stuff like that, broker peace, that kind of thing. But even where where I hope that I didn't mislead was that that's not even where marriage started. Marriage started like even way before those times, like before Christ, before all that stuff. Back when we were just a very rudimentary civilization, and it was really just a way. Some of the first records are like 2300 BC, right around there.
2350 to be precise.
Yeah,
To be precise, 2350, the first known act of marriage between one man and one woman was in Mesopotamia back in 2350 BC. And once that happened, it was kind of adopted by the Greeks, the Hebrews, and I think Judaism.
Yeah, and as a way to legitimize children, basically, to say, in this case, we're pretty sure these kids are yours. You're married, these kids are yours, and that was kind of the whole point of it, to bind a woman to a man and to make sure that her children are legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
And now, that was it. That wasn't about romance or love or anything.
Not at all. Not at all. Now, one of my questions for you is, now, how does that pertain to the United States? Because we know globally it's different. Everybody has their own cultural differences and things like that. But as it pertains to where we live, which is the United States, what is marriage, in essence today? What do you in your own opinion, what do you see marriage as today?
I feel like that answer probably differs for people. I know for me, if I were to get married, I think it would be more of a symbol, a romantic symbol or gesture to say, here I am committing myself to you, or, that kind of thing. And I think in that case, I'm sort of the more old fashioned believer in what a wedding means. You know what I mean? Where I think some people see it as a smart financial move. Somebody's together for a little while, everything's going good. They want to buy a home, or, they want to have kids. They want to have these kids, they want to have these kids protected, and they want, for all these reasons, they're like, this is the right thing to do. This is the prudent thing to do. And then I think for somebody, it represents a certain kind of checkpoint or finish line in life, almost like, I want to be married by the time I'm this age, because that's a goal for me. And that's a thing. Like, it's not necessarily about love or about finances. It's about this thing, this goal that we set for ourselves socially. For me personally, though, it's more the romantic thing.
More the romantic thing.
Yeah.
Now we had Tate Tatted Up on as a guest on that first episode, and she kind of mentioned something about her being a Christian, and how in Christianity, this is kind of what is expected, like that's and you alluded to it as well prior to that by saying, as women, this is kind of something as young girls that's kind of almost perpetuated onto them,
right.
As something that this is the goal.
Yeah.
The goal is to at some point find a husband, be married, have children, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Well, I decided to do a little bit of research into her statement, and as well as yours. And what I found is to the statement of religion and how marriage pertains to religion. The institution of marriage in the United States is not a religious driven contract. It is a secular agreement between two people and the state. So in essence, it's a contract. In essence, it's not what we would not even most people, what you would ideally want the perception of a marriage to be for your mate. You would want them to look at marriage more of a partnership, more of a relationship, as opposed to a business arrangement. You know what I mean? Like, but that's kind of a little bit of where we've gone with marriage when you start asking people what they think about marriage and what is how does it how does it reflect in their life,
right.
And how do they see it. And a lot of people start to initially, when you ask them, they're like, well, it's a way for us to share finances, to share bills, to share, you hear a lot of you don't hear what you want to hear first, which is, I really love this person. They complete me emotionally and help me to be a better me. Those type of things, which you would think you would hear when you describe a marriage, but a lot of it comes at the business side of it. Like, it's like, oh yeah, if anything ever happens to me,
Yeah.
I want my mate to be able to, garner, anything, all the responsibilities
Yeah.
to what I had.
Or like they're on my insurance or,
Here's my
something
insurance.
like that. Yeah.
All of those things. You don't hear that, oh, I'm just so in love. I'm so that, you do hear those storybook cases very, very, like, they're like, you barely hear those cases.
Yeah.
But they're always beautiful when you do hear them. But in most cases, you hear this business side of things. And I mean, when I tell you that, what, like, Tyrone, like, what does that make you, think about the United States and and not even the Constitution, but the arrangement of marriage?
I think what it's touching on for me is just kind of how we're driven as consumers of things, to kind of perpetuate that, and that's sort of a part of it. Like the reason why we have these goals instilled upon us is because we kind of have to uphold this this idea that we're all living. So it's like we got to keep on getting married and having kids, so those kids can buy stuff and like make people rich, like that kind of thing. It's become about that in a way. If you just look at like the business of marriage, it's ridiculous. I mean, you've been married, so I'm sure that you probably know much better than I do what kind of cost is involved with that. But I mean, even in itself, I mean, marriage is such a huge business, period. So I think it makes sense for it to be, in a way, it makes sense for it to be approached as a financial move. You know what I mean? Like I got to weigh the risks. I got to weigh the benefits. I mean, you're doing a cost benefit analysis on life. Like, oh yeah, okay, like this move makes sense for me or whatever. I think some of that has to be the case. And then at the same time, much like a growing business or something you want to keep going, you have to maintain a marriage, and hopefully you do it out of love and respect and camaraderie and companionship. But if you can't only do that stuff, you do have to look at the non-romantic part of life, the ugly part, the backstage stuff. You know what I mean? That stuff does have to be taken into account. So I guess in what I'm saying ultimately is balance is I think is the best way to go. Just make sure you're covering all your bases.
Now, one of the things that I thought about after going over that conversation that we had is one of the things that happens in these marriages, based on the numbers that we gave in the last video. And if you're just joining us, we are talking about Why Did I Get Married Part 2. The original episode is on our YouTube page and our MulTYversed fan page. So if you want to go back and check that original version, then go. It is available for your view.
And it was a fun one.
And it was fun. It was fun. But one of the things that we discussed was, what happens after you get married. A lot of times the relationships don't work out. For infidelity, for incompatibility, for countless reasons. Now the question then becomes, does your experience with marriage leave you with trauma moving forward when it comes to the idea of marriage, and also not just marriage, but the idea of relationships? Now, I know you've never been married, but you have been in relationships that haven't worked out. And whenever that has happened, give us an idea of how it makes you feel as an individual when something that you were thoroughly invested in doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah, I think looking back, especially for my longer relationships, I had a different perspective on things. So when it came time for that relationship to end, it was after a lot of already a lot of suffering, because my perspective was different in the way that I would do so much to keep a bad relationship going just because I made the commitment. You know what I mean? And if the relationship ends, then that means it's a failure, and I failed this person in some way. So it was like those ideas of kind of this everlasting, unbreakable commitment as being, as it being sort of a right or wrong thing. Like you're wrong if you have to break it. kind of put me in a state of almost trauma where it's like we can't give up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we give up, we've failed ourselves and our families and society and all that stuff. So yeah, that in a way, you know, kind of even in a committed relationship that wasn't bound by marriage, it was still kind of you know, leaving that situation. You know, I spent a lot of time like, what's wrong? Where did it go wrong? And it's like, you know, sometimes it just doesn't work out. And it's okay. And you got to move on. It's the best thing for both parties.
Yeah. But I think with marriage, it's a little bit more like it's the finality.
Yeah.
I think with a relationship where you're just boyfriend and girlfriend, if it doesn't work out, it's easier to kind of bounce back. It's easier to kind of say, well, you know, everything doesn't always work out. But better luck next time. Marriage is, because of the level of commitment, the level of work that it takes, the investment financially that goes into it. It changes the scape of you know, your thinking when it comes to how you perceive the outcome and how you perceive what's going on when you're in it. And for me, you know, because I was married and then got remarried, but after my first marriage, I had the most sour taste in my mouth for marriage. Like I was like this, because we we have in our heads this idea of what marriage is, and then you have what marriage is.
Mm.
And then and it's in a lot of cases they don't measure up. They don't add up. Like most people have this fairy tale image of marriage.
Right.
And how I'm gonna marry the person that I love, the love of my life. We're gonna spend the rest of our lives together. We're gonna have a girl and a boy and a cat and a dog and a white picket fence. Those are all TV made up marriages. Reality marriage does not necessarily. I'm not saying that that's not possible. Like that, let's be very clear about that.
Yeah,
There
it's
are some
probably not typical or ordinary.
It's not
Yeah.
typical. It's not typical. The parts that are omitted from the reality of marriage is we may get that house with the picket fence, but we gonna have to work our asses off for it. We
Mm.
may get a girl and a boy, but that might be after we had 3 girls. You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
so like now we are, you know, our household is larger. Our incomes are still the same. But now we have to spread, you know, all what we have out evenly or more abundantly. So
Yeah.
um
Not only that, but like you'd even add in any possible disasters. You know, like what if
didn't
and trying to have kids, what if there's a miscarriage? You know, that's and that kind of stuff to deal with. You know what I mean? What if you lose a family member and you got to deal with that? What if somebody loses their job and like and now
yeah,
we're, you
I
know
was
what I
gonna
mean?
say that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's so many things that could you know, that test you, that constantly test you. So it's, you know, I think that when those things test people and sometimes people find that, okay, in this situation we're not working it, like this isn't good, we can't do this, and like you were alluding to earlier, like marriage, it's more ironclad, so there are so many more hoops you have to jump through to end a bad situation. And so I think it probably keeps people in bad relationships longer, if you find out at some point that it's just not going to work. But like, what do? You know, you got to get lawyers. Not everybody has the money to go get a divorce lawyer. You know what I mean? Not everybody has the time, you know, to spend in counseling or the money to spend in counseling and things like that. So it's you know, it, not that I'm against marriage. I still, you know, I still believe in kind of like the romantic symbol of it. But yeah, it's something that I do not take lightly.
And neither, not, you know, I'm with you. It's not that
Mm.
I'm against marriage. I'm more for happiness than I am for marriage. So if you know, if they tie in together, if your happiness and is tied to a marriage, cool. But
Yeah.
if you're happy, be happy. Don't
Yeah.
worry. Don't feel like you're, you know, we have
Lacking
to be
something.
married
Right.
in order to, you know, in order to reach that plateau of happiness. Like if you're happy, be happy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Don't let other people, you know, kind of,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
think
determine what you should, where you should be at in life.
Yeah, and as you were saying that, a thought came to mind that kind of puts it into like a quick sentence. So for me, a non-married relationship is just as valid to me as a married relationship. You know, it's not about the legality of it; it's about how these two people are together.
How
You
you
know what I
relate.
mean? Yeah.
How you relate. How you relate to each other. That i.e. the relationship. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that's what it all boils down to. But this this idea that you have to be married,
Hmm.
even on the first episode, Tay was like, I felt like I needed to be married by
Yeah.
25.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that was where she was at, and like at some point,
Hmm.
her thinking was like, yo, if I'm not married by 25, then my life ain't hasn't been what it should have been.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what kind of brings me to the next question of why are people so obsessed with marriage? What was it that caused people at some point to say, you know what, I just have not lived my life unless I found somebody to spend the rest of my life with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there are a lot of answers again, but I think one of the biggest things is humans are obsessed with tradition. And tradition is one of those things where a lot of times we'll just do something without asking why, because it's tradition.
Mhm.
And like, and that has preserved a lot of great, cultural things and humanity type stuff. It has preserved a lot of that stuff. But at the same time, there are some things that maybe we need to rethink or maybe just look at a little bit differently. Uh, so the idea of marriage being a foregone conclusion or some universal thing that everybody needs to experience in order to experience success is an old fashioned idea that we just haven't rethought on a large scale. You know what I mean? Like individuals do it a lot, but like on a large scale, it's not really happening like that. Um, but yeah, it doesn't. It's such a big part of our culture. When we grow up, when we look at all the shows we watch, the movies, books we read, fairy tales. It's such a part of our culture. Just little things, little ideas like, when you meet somebody, looking at their finger to see if they're bound to somebody. That's such a universal reaction that people have,
Mhm.
just to kind of satisfy curiosity and almost like give this person, to find out where on this life scale this person should be. You know what I mean? It's a lot of stuff that's just kind of taught to us really early, and then we don't really get a lot of other ideas because we're just like, all right, that sounds about right, makes
Mhm.
sense, grow up, get married, fall in love, have kids, like that's makes sense to us. But then you're like, okay, what if this doesn't work for everybody? So I think most of it is tradition, and I think there's a good bit is just kind of media, throughout our history, whatever entertainment, whatever love stories, those kind of things have always been kind of centered around that.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I mean, it's this is one of those subjects that comes up a lot, I think, at this point now because of the turnover ratio in marriages. You know what I mean? Like you see people get married and the length of their marriages now are shortened
Mhm.
because of a lot of the things that some of our audience members like Lisa kind of alluded to is a lot of people don't discuss the necessary things that need to be discussed
Right.
prior to going into this contractual agreement. That and then once you get into it and realize that your dream world idea of the marriage is not what reality with the real world is of marriage, and you're not willing to put forth the effort that it takes to maintain a relationship like that.
Yep.
Because just like with anything, not just marriage, but in business, in the world, just relationships all are dependent on the work that you put into them.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those slackers that don't like to put in the work, then you're probably going to be one of those people that fall by the wayside when it comes
Yeah.
to pretty much everything in life.
Yeah.
So this is one of those things that marriage, whether it be contractual or whether it just be common law, you guys are just happy together. Um, all are dependent on the amount of energy that you're willing to put into that relationship. So
Yeah.
um
And to that point, I just want to say, people like you and Amy, people like Lisa, are a testament to marriage. Like, you are a good example of how things are supposed to work out if you if you're putting your time and really putting yourself into it. And I think that if we kind of made that attitude more of a universal thing, if that was taught instead of just like the fairy tale thing, then then we could all we'd probably be a lot healthier for it as a people. Imagine, having access, like anybody who wants to get married has access to some sort of like counseling or mental health, just like some kind of thing to get you on the same page, get you ready for this undertaking. You know what I mean? I just think that there's a better way we could all do marriage, but also hats off to the people like you, like Lisa, and all those people who are really working at it for doing it in a very encouraging and in a way that is more, I think, idealistic even than just that fairy tale romance.
Well, typically in my life, and I can't speak for Lisa, but typically in my life, I try not to be a quitter. So when the going gets tough, the tough get going. That's just how it is. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, because like I said, there's this, it can be very, very traumatic.
Oh yeah.
If you're not prepared for because if you have these enormous expectations as far as marriage, I promise you, not, almost 90% of the time, your mate is not going to live up to that expectation that you devised in your head. You know what I mean? Like, the world that you created in your head is never going to match the world that actually exists. And as like I said, it all in any relationship, it's about the work you're willing to put in.
Yep.
So if for some reason you or your significant other decide that, hey, I don't feel like putting in the work no more, that's why you see a lot of these relationships falling by the wayside. And it's so easy to just give up. Like, it's a lot easier to give up than to work at it. It's a lot easier. So that's why a lot of people take that route.
But also, when you find out that no matter how hard you work, it is just not going to work, I would just want to point out that it's not quitting to get yourself out of a bad situation. And it's not, we want to make sure we point that out, because it's sometimes y'all got to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes I see people sometimes where I'm like, man, you do not need to be together. Well, and it's rough.
Well, I'll say this: if in those situations, and you're right, it's not quitting, but you have to look at it like this: if you don't do right by yourself, right by yourself, if you don't do right by you, then life will allow you to get done any kind of way. Like, and when I say that, I mean you at some point you have control, but at some point you lose control. When you lose control, you have you're just here. So whatever happens at that point is you have no control over what's going to happen. So if that person decides to cheat on you, if that person decides to, take and wipe out your bank account, and because these are all things that people do when they're upset at at their significant other, they go back to the contractual part, which is like, oh, well, I got access to your bank account. I got access to your credit cards. I got access to this. So at that point, you don't want to ruffle those feathers. Trust me, you don't want to do that. I probably shouldn't, but I will. I will tell you, in my first marriage, my ex-wife decided at some point, she got mad at me, decided that she was going to go into the bank account and wipe my bank account clean. She took all the money out of my bank account. I don't even know how she did that, but she took it all out. She took every last dollar out. So then when I go to use my debit card, it's like, oh, insufficient funds. I'm like, oh, how's it insufficient? I know I got money in the account. So I go to the bank and they're like, yo, there's no money in there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, somebody, made a withdrawal. And I'm like, well, and then it dawned to me. So now at this point, as a husband, even though I'm going through it with my significant other at that time, I have to make a conscious decision because we have a son together. So I can't let my feelings get involved and try to prosecute her. She's the mother of my child. And if I do that, then he's without a mother. So, but it was one of those situations where I was like, wow, like, I'm in this. I have no control over no control over anything. Like, I could have been nasty. I could have been nasty and be like, I'm pressing charges, because they were like, look, we can get your money back, but you're gonna have to press charges. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'll just take it as a loss. And it was just like, all right, well, this is what it is. And that's why we're no longer together. You know what I'm saying? So, but
you're nicer than I am in that situation. Just so everybody knows, anybody who's watching, if we're married and you steal all my money from my bank account, I'm coming at you like we've never met before. I'm gonna be like, excuse me, ma'am. I just want to let you know that we'll be seeing each other in court. And like
I need that back.
We never even met at that point. Yep.
Yeah, man. Like this is one of those things where, I kept showing Jeannie Mai and Jeezy's marriage photos because Jeannie had just got out of a marriage. She had just divorced her husband right before she met Jeezy. And I remember watching her show. Not that I watched their show, but I mean, I might have caught a little bit. But anyway, she was speaking about relationship, how she would go about relationships after leaving her husband. She was like, I'm gonna just take a break. I don't want to, I've been in a relationship for so long, in a marriage for so long. I just want to breathe. But that breathing didn't last long because I mean, once she hit the market, it was like up. Jeezy jumped on it quick, and I can't even blame him. She's a beautiful woman. But she could have easily taken her experience, taken that trauma and just worn it, and just been like, you know what, marriage is not for me. I don't want to be with anybody. I don't want to, have to do anything like that. But instead, it allowed her to meet, from the outside looking in, it allowed her to meet somebody that seems to be making her happy. I mean, they're expecting a new child now, which that's another thing she talked about when she was married to her previous husband, was that she didn't want kids, which is ironic because here you are with a new husband and you are having a kid. Yeah. So I'm, kind of sounds like you didn't want a kid from him.
Yeah. I mean? It's like, the whole I want to breathe thing. Well, you just needed a breath from him. You need to get away from him. Like, so that's all those little things. Those are ways that we fool ourselves into being in something longer than we should. And instead of recognizing, and maybe it just took a little while, but like in that moment, instead of recognizing, okay, this person's not for me, it's like, okay, well, maybe, kids aren't for me, or marriage isn't for me. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not that those other things weren't for her. It's just that she needed to find the right person for those things. And yeah, I think people look at marriage, it's like it's this powerful word and this kind of omnipotent kind of force. But when it really comes down to it, it means nothing without the two people involved. So, you gotta, or in some cultures, more than two people involved. So you gotta, you gotta put that work in. You can't just be like, all right, we did it, and then chill.
And then just chill. Yeah. Because you will see how quickly that will fall apart. But one of the things that, I definitely don't like, kind of segue into the next topic, is I don't like seeing people being whipped. I don't know if it's just because of, I don't know, my heritage. But yeah, I don't like seeing people whipped. I don't even like seeing people with whips. I don't feel like, a whip at this point, whether you have a horse or anything, is necessary. I don't even know why they are still constructing whips at this point. But this is what's going on. And you would, when you see this picture, I'm trying to keep it together right now. When you see this picture, you would think this is happening in a third world country. You would not think that this could possibly be happening still in the United States of America. But as of September the 23rd, this is exactly what was happening in America, in Texas. Are you aware of what's been going on at our border, Tyrone?
Yeah, I've been following and keeping up with everything. I think you mentioned it looking like it's happening in a third world country, and it's an interesting phrase because of how Haiti got that way. These are Haitian migrants who have made a very long journey to get out of a situation where their country is just it's in shambles, mostly because of the history it has with imperialistic nations like France and the U.S. after France.
Hey, Tyrone.
Yes.
Tyrone, let me stop you real quick because
Please.
I just wanted to, because you just said they made a very long journey. I want people out there to realize that we're really under, like, these people traveled from Haiti.
Yes.
Okay. A long journey for me is like from South Carolina to New Jersey. That's what I think a long journey is. Like 16 hours, 13 hours. I think that's a long journey. These people walked, y'all, walked for days on end from their country all the way up here. I don't think people realize, the journey that they took to get here. They had to travel through Colombia. And I'm not talking about the capital of South Carolina. I'm talking about Colombia, the country in South America. I am also talking about Panama, because they had to travel through Panama, another country that they had to travel through. And let's not stop there, but Mexico, another country that they had to travel through. So yes, granted, they were on boats, from Colombia to Panama, but again, on foot, through Panama and through Mexico. And on that journey, you're talking about traveling through the Panamanian jungle. Yes, I said it, jungle, not woods, not where you might see an occasional bobcat, bear. We're talking about jungle where you might get attacked by a panther. You might get attacked by, some type of venomous snake, a venomous frog, all type of different spiders, all type of different, like, who knows what lurks in the jungle. But these people had to walk and travel that far to escape what it was. So that I just wanted to tap in and kind of get people to understand that these people are not traveling from South Carolina to New Jersey because they're bored and have nothing better to do. These people are traveling from country to country to try to find a better situation. So I just wanted to tap in and let everybody know that. And you can go ahead and continue with the point you were making, Tyrone.
Yeah, no, I think you were making you were pretty much circling around my point, and you just had to go through a lot to kind of highlight the fact that these are people who are struggling and who are sacrificing, and who a lot of people are dying and they're getting sick. I mean, this is all during a pandemic. You know what I mean? Like, this is not, like you said, this is circumstances here are not normal. But the reason that things like this are still kind of allowed to happen is that we're kind of taught to look at people from countries like Haiti, or let's think of African countries that go through the same kind of misconceptions about why they are what they are, and just look at we look at it like, oh, look at these people don't have XYZ because they don't have the the freedom that we have in America, or whatever else. It's like, no, these countries have been destroyed quite literally by foreign policy of this country. In Haiti's case, this country, like, we did this, like we made this problem, and now we're over here treating people like this at our border because they're trying to escape the hell that we created. So it's and then of course nature didn't help. Nature keeps throwing earthquakes at the island and stuff, or at the country. But like, we make it, that's why you hear in the news, like, they make it out to be some sort of invading force or something, because what they don't want people to be thinking is like, look at this mass of people who have been failed by this country and put in this position, and we're over here like, no, you got to go back, you got to go home, you don't belong here, you're not welcome here.
And what's really what's really the irony of this whole situation? The irony of this whole situation for me is it's really strange that the United States, who brought a whole a whole piece of people over to this country against their will, but won't allow people who want to come freely into the country, which is ironic. And one of those situations where this was us, hundreds of years ago. And we're over here being herded like cattle again. And the outcry has not been sufficient enough for me. I've heard more in the news about the young lady whose boyfriend killed her.
Killed her, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard more in the news about that than I have about this.
Yeah.
And when you see men on horseback with whips, whipping people, not just black people, but people, the outcry should be a lot larger and a lot, first of all, I have not heard one thing, not one single thing about these individuals losing their job. Not one. As a matter of fact, the governor of Texas doubled down when asked about what was going on with the guys, with the officers on horseback with whips. And he doubled down and said they will stop anybody who's trying to get into the country through Texas. So he didn't even address the whips. He just said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to line up all of our cars. And if anybody comes, we see anybody come up over this, come up out of this river that separates us and Mexico, then not only are we going to prosecute them, put them, on a plane back to their country, but we may just turn them around and send them back through the same water that they treaded through back to Mexico.
Yeah. Think about it this way too. Like, you see all those vehicles lined up like that. So just look at that as money. Look at those vehicles as money. Imagine if we put that money into helping these people instead of making a wall of expensive SUVs to keep them out. You know what I mean? Or even helping them, Americans, helping anybody who needs help, because we have enough. We actually have enough. But we're, instead we're spending money doing this because all this shit ain't free.
Not at all.
Sorry to interrupt you.
All the manpower. No. All the manpower. You're right. Absolutely. All of it costs. The manpower, the hours, all of the gas up all these vehicles, to pay for all these vehicles, all of that costs. And one of the saddest things that I noticed, and that when I was kind of doing my research on this, is why is it that when you have so much, it seems as though you're more likely to withhold it from. I mean, this reminds me of a story in the Bible of a pharaoh. And I hope nobody out there gets upset that I'm not fully versed on the Bible. I'm sorry, but I know that this story, I'm right about this story. But there was a pharaoh at some point who ruled over his people, and he would stockpile all of the grain and all of the stuff like that. And basically he would have all of the warehouses full with the grain, but he wouldn't give any to the people. And instead of giving it to the people, he would keep it for themselves and say, if something happened bad, we'll have our food, but we don't have enough. But they had more than enough. You see, you hear something like that, but then you go to a country like Mexico, who's one of the poorest countries in the world. Am I right or wrong about that?
I don't know the answer to that question, to be honest.
Okay. Well, as far as, I don't know if they're the poorest as far as their actual economy, but I do know that a lot of the places in Mexico are underdeveloped. Their water supply is tainted. So these are things
I think Mexico's probably closer to the US than we think as far as that because like they do have some bustling cities and a big tourist economy and stuff like that. But like you said, there are some areas that are very underdeveloped and have terrible infrastructure. But we could say that same shit about the US too. I mean, they still don't have drinkable water in Flint. You know what I mean? Like
that's true.
So it's like we have crumbling infrastructure and stuff like that. We're not that different. The difference is we probably have a lot more billionaires.
Well, I can tell you there's a big difference. There's a bigger difference than even that. The fact that the Mexican people are willing to help.
Yes.
They're willing to actually not only are they giving the opportunity to some of these Haitian people to become residents of Mexico, but this right here, this picture that I'm showing you right here is of a pastor, a Mexican pastor who decided to come out and just grill up a whole bunch of food and feed all of these people that wound up being on their on the not the docks, but on the
shores.
The shores of Mexico. And again, when they got to Mexico, the Mexican authorities weren't immediately throwing them onto buses and shipping them back out on planes to Haiti.
Right.
They were giving them options. They were like, and this is coming from a country who, definitely you're saying they might not be that different from us. Well, as an economic juggernaut, I think they differ in that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like they're nowhere near as powerful, but like I meaning like more from a civil standpoint and from a regional standpoint. But to what you're saying though, it's interesting because this is history repeating itself. This isn't the first time that Mexico has shown up for Black people, actually, when it comes down to it. Mexico, it's not often taught in schools here, but Mexico was actually, they were an ally when it came to abolition. Mexico was not down for the U.S. keeping slaves. And often a lot of free slaves would escape to Mexico. And Mexico would take them in and they would live lives down there. I mean, there's a lot of Afro-Latino history down there. So, I mean, so this is again, Mexico coming through where America fails. And it's America, kind of perpetuating another humanitarian crisis. And we should absolutely all be very critical. We should be loud about it. It shouldn't be allowed to stand. I mean, we all know this is wrong. You know what I mean? Like we've seen, just because those pictures and those videos are in color doesn't mean they're any different from what we saw in the 60s in the civil rights movement. Or, before that, when we look at textbooks and see, drawings of slaves and stuff like that, that's just not different.
And I won't say that our border patrol haven't been dickheads. I'm not even, I mean, like, for lack of a better, term, but they have for the most part, because when, Mexican, refugees were trying to get migrants were trying to get into the country as well. They were detained. I don't know necessarily that whips were involved. And if so, we haven't seen any footage or anything like that, but we definitely know that they were detained and put into, seemingly concentration camps.
Yeah, I would be surprised if that was the first time Officer Carl decided that he was going to whip somebody. You know what I mean? He didn't look like he was a stranger to that concept.
Absolutely.
So I would imagine this is probably standard protocol for some of those guys down there.
Yeah, and I mean, Lisa's comment, this is why we did this, Lisa, because it hasn't been given enough headway. It hasn't been given enough headway. It's not being polarized. Like I said, right now, top news is this young white girl's killer on the loose. As far as I know, unless he got caught. Did he get caught? I don't know. I haven't even been following it.
I don't know.
But yeah, exactly. But there's been more news in regards to that than it has been about what's been going on at the border. And again, I have not seen one document, one news clipping, one anything that has said anything about any of the cops that were involved with whipping these people losing their jobs.
Right.
I have not seen one, not a reprimand. I don't, and if they have, it's probably a paid leave or something like that. But again, the governor of the state of Texas or the mayor, I hate to be wrong about this, but it might have
Governor
been
Abbott.
Yeah, doubled down and was like, look, we're going to protect our borders no matter what. He did not address the fact that these cops were down there beating people with whips. He didn't even flinch. He was like, look, we're going to do what we got to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's it. You know, I've been put in charge of this and that. Look, don't nobody tell me how to run. That was his attitude, and that was his energy. Was like, no, ain't nobody gonna tell me how to run my state. They nominated me to do. So that's what it is, in essence. And you know, for us as Black people to see other Black people, Haitian or not, but you know what I mean, like to see that again, you know, for me, it's always been on movies. I've never actually, you know, seen in this age anybody whipped with a whip. As a matter of fact, the first time of me ever seeing a whip was at a bull race, and you know that was like, I'm not a bull race, but a
rodeo.
A rodeo.
Yeah, which is where they belong. I mean, I feel like if there's ever going to be a whip somewhere, that's where it should be. Either that or in Catwoman's hand. But other than that, those are the only two options.
Exactly. Only two options that make sense. But to see, you know, these gentlemen, and I use that term loosely, you know, on horseback, which is also a position of power. You know, anytime you elevate yourself over another person or another being. I feel like it garners a sense of authority and a sense of power.
Right. And historically it has been, you know, used very in very ugly ways to that effect.
Exactly. Yeah. And we just saw it recently. So yeah, I want to make sure that we do our best to get out news like this and get out you know, aware, you know, kind of spike the awareness of this, because you know, Lisa, the fact that you haven't heard this means that there's other people out there that haven't heard this. And
you know what other stuff? Sorry, I wanted to add something because I think you'll enjoy this. But you know what I learned while like looking into this, because you have to like go and find information about this. You have to like actively go and look for it.
Yes, it's not.
When I was so I was like doing some reading on Haiti and its relationship to the U.S. and I found that that in the early 1800s, I believe, Haiti's slave population rose up against its French occupiers and won their nation back and became the first like Black republic in the Americas. And when you look at, and then of course, after that, America was like, don't like this, we're gonna have to do something. And they did. And here's where we are now. That's a very, very abridged history of why we've gotten to this point. But I mean, this was, you know, we always talk about like, you know, we talk about things changing.
You froze for a minute. But you're back.
Yeah.
He was like,
yeah, no, we talk about, you know, things changing. We talk about, you know, people basically fight the power. We talk about fight the power. We talk about rising up and all that other stuff. Haitians did, and they won. And then America came and messed that up. You know what I mean? Like they were doing their thing. They were, you know, building an economy, building a government, building a nation. And, you know, they were just like, nope, you can't do that. We're not going to have that over here. Not in our backyard. You know what I mean? So I wanted that little bit to be added so people, whoever's watching, can know that too, so they could be as angry as they should be.
And there's actually a really good series that came out a while ago on Stars called Black Sails. And if you really want to kind of watch a story of what Tyrone is talking about, it's Black Sails, because they basically are talking about the Haitian Revolution, and you know how but they do it in a sense where they use pirates and all of this kind of stuff. But it's cool. It's cool because it's very entertaining. But Black Sails is an older show. It doesn't come on anymore. Well, the seasons, they stopped the seasons after, you know, after they revolted and pretty much got rid of nothing else after that. But no, it was a really good series. So you know, that's one that I suggest anybody out there to go check out if they want to go check it out.
Yeah,
Now,
and if I could add one more thing, just because I've been worked up and riled up and everything. Is this, somebody might look at this and be like, this is anti-American, or whatever. And I want to just point out that this is not anti-American. I think this country could just be a lot better than it is. And I'm not going to sit here and act like we're doing all the right stuff, because we're absolutely not. So I love the country in a way that I want to hold it to a higher standard and be better than it is. That's all. I just wanted to say that.
I mean, and I agree and fully support that notion. And yes, we do live in a country. I mean, and again, nobody or nothing is perfect. Okay, there's always going to be a problem in some way, shape, or form with anything. This is just one of those situations that, especially after the temperature of the country, after
Mhm.
the George Floyd murder, and where I thought we were heading, whereas black people were supporting black people, and supporting the harassment and the murdering and the abuse of black people. I would have thought that the Black Lives Matter movements and all those people who supported the George Floyd would be in the streets again, revolting and at least you know garnering some sympathy towards these people who really are truly just trying to find a better life.
Yeah.
They're in a dictatorship.
Yeah.
Like like I
And
don't think people realize that, because we've never been subjected to that level.
yeah, the president was just assassinated,
Yes,
and like there was a coup, like that was, yeah. So it's not, things are not good there.
at
And
all.
I do want to just shout out for the people who, because there are smaller protests, nothing at the level that was like last summer at all. You know what I mean? And it should be, but shout out to the people who are protesting down at ICE, and and calling their politicians and doing all that work, because there are some people doing good work out there still, like every day, doing work, fighting fighting for these causes, and trying to make things better, and support them if you can. Donate to causes, you know what I mean, to help these kinds of things.
Yeah, that's a good. That's again, support those sentiments. Um, I think we're gonna wrap it here. I think we pretty much delved into this conversation as much as we possibly can. But again, thanks everybody. Thank you to everyone who came out. Everybody in the chat who came and supported. Everybody who continues to support us. Tyrone, I'll give you the floor, and then I'll go ahead and wrap it up.
All right, like Ty said, thank you so much for watching and for being a part of it. Thanks for being in the comments. We're here every Wednesday at 6:30 for MulTYversed, always talking about some good stuff. You never know what you're going to hear on here, so we always have a good time. You can like, share, follow the page, watch the videos, tell your friends about us, because we're having a good time. So catch us on Facebook, catch us on YouTube, and you can catch me at Tyrone Thornhill on any social media except for TikTok. I'm 37. Other than that, thank you. See you next week.
We are currently working on Tyrone Thornhill's TikTok account, so look out for that. New videos on the way. But again, I want to definitely thank everybody who comes through. Lisa, Derica, Holly, of course. All of the people that come through to support the show. Everybody who's been in the chat going crazy. We really are trying to do our best at bringing y'all great content, and we will continue to do our best at doing that. But your support is greatly appreciated. You guys don't know how much it means to us. It helps us to get up every Wednesday, and have the energy to come out here and do what we do. So again, I just want to say thank you to everybody who comes through, and even to those who don't support. We appreciate you guys too, because you feel the fire. So I don't want to take too much. We get to that point of the show where my man, my favorite comedian of all time, has a couple words for you, and then we'll get up out of here.
Boy, just be yourself. If people don't like it if you're being yourself, fuck them. Let me tell you something. I used to go with a girl, man, about your age. I tried to please her peppy all the time. Went out my way to please her peppy. I come in one day, I said, nice weather we have. Said, you can't say that. You can't say that, it might rain. I said, nice tie you got on. Said, you can't say that. My wife tried to choke me with it. Point I'm trying to tell you, son, is be yourself. People don't like how you be yourself. Fuck them. Fuck them up against the wall. Wear handcuffs on them and crazy through on their lips. That's all you do.
Words to live by.
You live by them, son.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the club now, Uncle Vester, and just go.
You go and enjoy yourself, boy.
I can't get enough of Bernie, man. But from me, Bad Ty Bricks, to Tyrone Thornhill, to Holly Noon, who we hope is enjoying your vacation. Be good, be safe, and we are the MulTYversed.